Hello again. It is, we're going to cover Chapter 1 study guide and that we would normally have done in class. So we were supposed to do this our first day of class, which was March 11th, and then a Wednesday, and then we were supposed to do it March 16th, which was Monday, and that was our first day out. So that's what we were supposed to get done. So we're going to finish it now. I'm at my house on the third floor, so hopefully nobody will come up or making noises or anything. We got through question number 7. It's up here on my screen right now, so I'm going to look at it every now and then. We got through question 7 when we were together on the first day. So we're going to answer 8 through 25 right now. And then I will put the answers written into Moodle also, so that you'll have a good set to study from. Remember that we've moved things around. We're going to have our first test on chapters 1 and 2 on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, March 25th. It will be open all day long, and you do it online, and it's 50 questions, multiple choice, obviously open book, open notes. So you can use whatever you have with you to answer the questions. And if you can take it anytime during the day, but once you open it, you have 2 hours to take it. And then if you are not done in those 2 hours, it will just count all the unanswered questions as wrong. So make sure you get it done. Make sure you can only get into it once. So make sure that you also are able to finish it whenever you start it. Because if you close out, you can't get back in. And it will count all the unanswered questions 0. If you have questions while you're taking it, you need to text me or call me. An email will not be fast enough. You will not get any kind of help with an email while you're taking the test, because I'm going to check it periodically throughout the day, and it's probably not when you're taking your test, but an email or a text or a phone call will get me, okay? Because you always have your phone on you. All right, so one more thing too is that I didn't announce on the first day, but I did put in announcements. Now you need to be reading announcements because I've been posting a lot of them. That's our main way of communicating with me, with you guys anyway. So be sure that you're looking at announcements. We have something called a course schedule in Moodle. It's near the syllabus. It shows everything that's due every class period. So I would definitely print that out, put it in phone, put it in your calendar, have it nearby. I'm going to send out reminders of what's due also, but it just helps you map out the rest of the semester. So I think that's it. So, all right, let's start on chapter 1. We were looking at chapter 1 is a lot of different things. It's an intro to the topic, which the whole class is an intro to psych, but it's an intro to our class. And it's got a couple main topics. So one of them was the goals or questions psychologists ask. Remember, what, why, what's the future, and can we change it? And those goals are describe, explain, predict, and control. The same things you see in any other science. The other part of chapter 1 is the research methods, how we answer questions. So we got the questions, what do we ask? And then this is how do we answer it? And we've started, we talked about how all research is biased, and we have to start with a hypothesis, meaning that we think we already know what the answer is, and we just set out to prove that we're correct, which starts us down a path of potential bias and lying, and it's just a mess. So we have some things in place to help prevent us from making decisions that match our hypothesis that aren't accurate. We have other people review our work and that kind of thing. But so we're going to look at a couple different ways that we answer those questions. It's called research methods, but really it's just answer methods. Because you guys and the rest of the world look at their own family and your own life and your own experience to come up with answers about things. Psychologists don't. We want to do it more objectively, and we want it to apply to everybody more so. So we use lots of people in our studies, not just our own family and friends. We started already with naturalistic observation, which is the easiest one, and that is when we're just watching the subject's behavior in its natural environment. Its natural environment is wherever that behavior normally would occur. So shoppers in a mall, we said students in a classroom, although now students are on the computer, but you know what I mean. And we also looked at some good and bad for that, the advantages and disadvantages. Again, I'm going to be looking up at my notes every now and then, sorry, that we already took. Some of the advantages are that we get real natural behavior where normally in all the other methods, people know they're being watched, so they behave differently. This one, they don't. Now, if they find out they're being watched, then we have to nix the whole thing, and that's called observer effect. That's when the observer has an effect on the subject's behavior, that we know we're being watched and we're going to act differently and we're not going to get good information anymore. Other problems is it doesn't tell us why the behavior is happening. So we just know people are washing their hands, 50% of the time, but we don't know why they're doing it that many or that little. So it's not helpful for that question. And another problem is observer bias, which, we have that with all research. It's just saying that you're going into the experience expecting something. So we talked about how you'd have somebody else judge instead of the person who knows the hypothesis. So you get a bunch of Psych 150 students who don't know the hypothesis to judge for you, and then they won't be biased. So that's where we ended up. This is my nasty, nasty green tea. It tastes horrible, but I hear it's so good for you. And being middle-aged and trying to fight the whole aging thing, I do everything I can for antioxidants and health and all that kind of goofy stuff. So nasty. Blech. No sugar. No nothing. I heard lemon increase antioxidants, so I put lemon in it. It just makes it taste worse. Oh well, I will be drinking it as we go along. Okay, so we got through 7. Question number 7. Question number 8. What is the case study method? So this is another way to answer questions. This one, we're going to spend a large amount of time, a long time, getting to know one or just a few subjects. We're going to get to know them really well, in depth. We're going to talk to our kindergarten teacher. We're going to run them through some tests. We're going to learn about their childhood and everything about them right now, and try to make some guess as to what's going on with them. But it's only about one or just a few subjects. So one of the big problems with it, which is number 8A, one of the big disadvantages is that it does not generalize. We cannot take what we find and say it applies to anybody else, because one person is not a big enough subject pool. If I wanted to know how all Nash Community College students think about going to online only, but only ask you, one person, do you think you represent everybody well? No. And that's the problem with case study. So that's a big disadvantage. It can't generalize. It fails to generalize is the fancy way of saying it. That's this main problem. I mean, we spend all this time studying this person and we can't use it on anybody else. So that really stinks. So why bother? What a waste of time. Well, the advantages, you can take advantage of things that happen to people or unusual circumstances. All those medical shows, trauma, life in ER, these kind of things, they're case studies. They are where somebody's got some sort of bizarre medical condition or something tragic happened to them, a stake went through their body or whatever, and they survived. And we learn things about humans from these mistakes and accidents. So we got to take advantage of them. So we still see value in studying them. It generates new hypotheses. It gives us ideas of where we should go to try to find answers for everybody else. And it gives us new ideas. Yeah, that's a new hypothesis. Question number 9 is another research method. And we're getting more and more complicated. And well, actually, it should be a survey next, but I think your book does it this order. That's why I did it this order. All right, so anyway, correlational method is pretty advanced method. It's probably the most advanced method we use on a regular basis. Correlational, the word, the meaning of it is in the actual word. Correlational, it measures the relationship between two or more variables. A variable is any trait or characteristic of a person or place or thing that can be changed, or that's just a characteristic of them. So variables of me are that my age, my height, my weight, my hair color, that kind of stuff, obvious. But in psychology, it can also be your favorite color, your sense of humor, your energy levels, are you an introvert or extrovert? So it's a wide range of characteristics of the person. Of this room could be the lighting, the temperature, the size, the smell, that kind of stuff. So it's just saying, is there a relationship between these two things? And it can be any two things. The car you buy and your how extroverted you are. I don't know. It can be anything. We can see if there's a relationship between anything out there in the world at all. Its big advantage is that it shows relationships. And it can allow us to predict. Remember one of those questions or one of those goals we have, prediction, what's going on in the future? It allows us to predict. Because if we see that both these things are related, and as one increases, the other one increases, then when one starts to increase, we know the other one's probably going to do it too. So it allows us to make a guess as to what's going to happen to this other variable when one starts to change, because we know it's connected. Now, the relationship can be like this, or it can be like this. It doesn't have to move in the same direction. Both don't have to increase. Both don't have to decrease. One can increase at the same time the other's decreasing. What matters is that they're doing it at about the same rate. That tells us they're related to each other. If this one starts kicking up, then this one starts going down, then they're connected. That's its big advantage. We can make predictions. That's a big deal. The problem or the disadvantage, and this is number 9A, the disadvantage is that we don't know why they're connected. And people will sometimes make mistakes in determining cause. One is causing the other. Well, no. You don't know that this one's causing this one to change, because it could be something out here, some third thing that's causing both of them to do what they're doing, okay? And if you change that thing up there, then both of these will change. If you change one of these, the other one won't change because it's not causing it. An example. It's a true story. It's a true fact that kids with bigger feet spell better. Spell, not smell, spell. They spell better. Kids with bigger feet spell better. It's true correlation. There is a relationship. Foot size and spelling ability. Yup. I know it sounds weird. You can go online, and if we were face-to-face, I would do it for you. And there's a whole big list of absurd correlations, things that are connected that make no sense. That's because you're trying to say that they're causing each other. We can't say that with this study. So the kids with bigger feet spell better. Well, then you're going to start trying to make your kid's foot bigger because you think that'll make them spell better. Or maybe you don't want your kid's foot to be too big, so you're going to hinder their spelling ability. That sounds silly. Neither one of those two go together, okay? They're connected. Bigger feet, better spelling ability. But what's causing it? Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. What we think is causing it is they're getting older. As kids get older, their feet grow. We didn't say adults. We said children with bigger feet. So a 6-year-old has bigger feet than a 4-year-old, and a 10-year-old has bigger feet than a 6-year-old. A 10-year-old can spell better than a 6-year-old. So really it's age that's causing both of them. That's that little outside factor. You change the age, you'll change both of these. Aha. All right. That was number 9. Number 10, survey method. This is easy. You've all probably taken a survey. You give a large number of people a standard set of questions, the same questions. And you see what the answer. It's quick. It's cheap. It's a good way to get a lot of information fast. It's just a good method. But, of course, it has flaws. 10A, advantages, disadvantages. Disadvantages are people lie. The questions can be really just worded badly so that you don't understand them. The answer choices aren't very good. You use terminology nobody understands. So people lie and fake good or fake bad. So that's a big problem. And the benefits are, like I said, it's fast and get a lot of information quick. It's cheap. So that's survey method. Now, number 11 talks about a population and 12 talks about sample. And those things, usually we put that in with survey, but it applies to all our answer methods. So number 11, a population is every subject, and subjects are people or animals that we're studying. Remember, it's not math and science. Every subject that has the characteristic that we're interested in studying. Like everyone we would like to be in the study. Everyone that if we're studying smokers in the United States, we want all smokers in the United States. That's the population. So it's not about where people live. It's about the characteristics that they have. And then the sample, because most of the time we cannot study everybody, the entire population. So the sample is a small piece of that population. So it's if there's a million smokers in the United States, we can't get them to participate in our study. So maybe we get 1,000. And there's mathematical formulas that tell you how many is enough to represent the population. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's the point, is that the small group is supposed to represent or be the same as the population, everybody. If it's not, then we got huge problems. What we find out about that sample does not apply to the population. Our research was worthless. And so we call it a non-representative sample. And that's number 13. So what are some problems using a sample? Well, so 2 problems. One, it needs to be big enough, okay, to represent everyone. And like I said, there's mathematical formulas. A sample of 1 is not big enough. And that's the problem with case study. Case study was a sample of 1. So it has to be a large enough sample. If you're at Sam's and they're trying to sell you a chocolate cake and they give you this little teeny piece of chocolate cake to try, you're not going to know what the cake tastes like. So it's not big enough sample. We need a bigger chunk. Now, do we need half the cake on a stick to know what it tastes like? No. But there's a point at which it's a big enough sample to taste it so that you know what the cake tastes like, but not too big to be wasteful. Yep, that's our same job. So sample size matters, okay? The other thing is the characteristics of the sample have to match the characteristics of the population. Back to the smokers in the United States. If we had 1 million smokers in the United States and 50% of them are female, then 50% of our sample needs to be female. We can't go out there and end up with 1,000 males and say this applies to smokers in the United States, because it won't. We need 50-50. So it needs to match. The characteristics need to match. Sorry, distracted. Number 14. We're only on 14. Last method to answer questions that we're going to talk about. And that is the experimental method. And that is the hardest way to answer a question. It takes the most steps. It's the most difficult, and it's the best. But we often can't use it because the way it's used just doesn't fit certain questions. Stinks. So let's talk about what it is. Number 14, experimental method. It's long. You'll see the definition in the answers. I'll say it, but it's really long. It might not be the exact same words. You systematically manipulate one variable, remember a trait or characteristic of something, while simultaneously holding everything else constant, meaning make sure nothing else changes, and then measure the effects on another variable. Blech. I think it's easiest explained through an example. So, if you could make a drug that would make you bazillion trillion dollars, what would it do for people? Tick tock, tick tock. A lot of people say cancer cures cancer. I say, makes your memory better. Let's do that. All right. So this pill makes your memory better. We've got to prove that it does make an improvement in memory. So we're going to get our population is who? Well, college students would probably be interested in this. Older people would probably be interested in this. Those are students in general, and probably the elderly. That'd probably be my population. I would think that would be most interested. So I am going to, that's who I want to know it works on. That's my population in the United States. So now I'm just going to get a sample of those. So they must be students and older people, 65 plus, in the study, in our sample. So that's fine. We got those now. Now we're going to put them in two groups. This group over here gets the drug. This group does not. But this group gets a fake drug because we don't want the act of swallowing a pill to be what makes the difference in the memory abilities. We expect this group to have better memory after the pill than this group. So we need to make everything else the same between the two groups, except that this one got the pill and this one got something fake. Okay? This one got the drug and this one did not get the drug. That's what we want the only difference in these two groups to be. So we put them in two groups. They're even groups. Same males, females over here, same age range, same males, females over here, same age range, same health issues. All the things that could affect their memory are all evened out. Well, first of all, is that even possible? Can you do that with people? No. No two people are exactly alike. So right there, we're already flawed. But anyway, that's what we do. And then we give this group the drug. This group gets a fake treatment, a fake pill called a placebo. And that is, well, we're talking about placebo effect in question number 15. We're in 14 still. So you give them a fake drug. Before you give them the drug, maybe you give them a memory test, see where they are. Then you give them the drug and the fake drug. Then you give them another memory test. And this group over here should be scoring better. Okay? And if they do, we want the only difference between these two groups to be that drug so that we can say that drug caused the change. If we help them out, if we gave them an easier list than this group over here, the guy get the exact same list. If we give them an easier list, then that could be why their scores were better. Okay, so you have to have everything else the same in these two groups, except for the only thing you're testing. And that's hard to do. It's impossible, really. It really is. But we do the best we can. And that's why there's some things you cannot put through the experimental method because you cannot hold everything else in life the same. We cannot say that spanking is good or bad for child development because we cannot control all the other things that go into a kid's behavior. Okay, so that's an example of a study we cannot conduct. So we cannot say anything about spanking. Sorry. 14A, advantages, disadvantages. Advantages, this is the only method that can tell us why something happens. Because we've eliminated all the other whys, and we've only got one why left. So that must be the why. But you see how hard that is. So we don't do it very often. But that's the only way that you can find out why. It's a huge advantage. That's the main advantage right here. Big disadvantage, it's in a lab. It's like the most manipulated fake scenario possible. It's on the other end of the spectrum from naturalistic observation. Naturalistic observation, you got to see real behavior, natural behavior. Experiment, man, you know you're in a study. They're poking and prodding you and messing with you, giving you medicine, doing stuff to you to see what happens. It's the most manipulated. So it's artificial. So maybe the same results will not show up outside in the real world as we see in this lab setting. And there's always outside things that can affect it that we hadn't thought of before. We didn't control. And so that's always a problem too. Question number 15, placebo effect. That's when the person who thinks they're getting the pill is enough to make a change in them. If you believe you're getting some sort of treatment, the belief can be enough to actually cause a change. So when we're doing this study, we want to make sure that nobody knows if they got the drug or not. Because if they know they got the drug, that may have an impact on them versus the people who know they did not get the drug. So we need to be sure that we prevent the placebo effect by not letting anybody know. It's called being blind. And a lot of times the researcher themselves do not know who got what pill. And when the researcher doesn't know, or the person handing it out, and the subjects don't know, then we call it double blind because both people are blind to it. Anyway. Number 16, the experimenter effect. This is a problem. I guess we could put that up there with 14A. It's the same thing, though. It's the fact that you know you're in a study and it affects your behavior. So it's what we already said was a problem. Number 17, now we jump into a new topic in Chapter 1. Chapter 1 has 3 main topics: the questions that we ask, the way we answer them, and then the subfields of psychology. Now, I know on your name cards that we'll never use again in our class that you put your major, and there were no psychology majors. So who cares about the different subfields in psych? The only thing I want you to just know is that there's a lot more to psychology than being a therapist. Because you might find that you like psych and you're interested in it, but you like business, or you still like healthcare, or you like sports still, or sports management. Was someone going into sports management? Anyway, there are fields in psych that combine those two things. So you may find a whole new degree for yourself. So that's not what 17 is. Sorry, delete that whole part. I'm not going to delete it. The third section, sometimes that's in the first chapter. That's not in this first chapter. The third section of Chapter 1 is the different theories of psych. Sorry. Although all I said was true. All right. Choking that crap down. You're supposed to drink 3 to 5 a day. I can only get 2 in. I shoot for 3 though. Okay. So we're on 17. 17 through 25 is all about these different theories. The good or bad thing about psychology is that there are so many possible explanations or ideas about why people do what they do, that each one of them have merit, and it makes us not have a set answer. It's just lots of possible answers, which can be fun to think about, but it also can be tiring because sometimes you just want to know why and be done with it. So that's what these are about. These are different attempts to explain human behavior. They're all unique, but they're all limited. They all have good points and they all have weaknesses. They can't explain this, and they can't explain that behavior. So we'll just go through them. Number 17, behavioral perspective. Remember the definition? Psychology is the scientific study, which we've done all that scientific study stuff, of behavior and cognitive processes. Behavior, this is the behavior theory. This is the group that believes that the only thing we can measure and study in humans is what we can see you do, what we can objectively measure you doing. So that's the behavioral perspective. They believe that everything that you are today, you have learned from your life circumstances. You were born with nothing, a blank table, a blank tablet, and that everything you are, all the shaping that you are, your ideas, your beliefs, your values, your sense of humor is coming from life experiences. So if you have a behavior you don't like, you've learned it and you can unlearn it. But how do you unlearn schizophrenia? See, it doesn't work for everything. The number 18, the cognitive perspective, that's the other half of the definition. And that believes that it's your thoughts going on in your head that's the most important. And that's what we should study. Cognition is thoughts, thinking, mental activity. So they believe that if you're having troubles in life, it's because you're thinking troubled thoughts. We need to go to the root of the problem, which is your troubled thoughts, and change those faulty thoughts. Well, does that work for schizophrenia? No. See, it doesn't work for everything. But you probably think of an example of a time when, like right now, where things are going on that you don't like, but it's out of your control. And so you just try to change your thinking about it. And when you change your thinking about it, sometimes you feel better. The situation didn't change, but your thoughts about it changed. That's an example. Number 19, psychodynamic theory. This is the fun, exciting, sexy theory in psychology. Everybody loves this theory, and we will spend an entire chapter on this theory. But just a brief thing. This one believes that the reason you are who you are today is because of your childhood. This is the only theory that thinks your childhood is that important. All the other theories think that today is just as important as then. But not this theory. This one says the child is the father to the man. It looks at our motives, and it believes that our motives as humans are sex and aggression. That's what drives all of us. All of our behaviors come back to the need to have sex and aggressiveness. So it looks at your dreams. It believes that your dreams have meaning. That's the only theory that does that. No other theory cares about your dreams. And it looks at the unconscious. That there's things going on that you're not aware of. You call it the subconscious, but we call it unconscious. That there's drives and motives and desires that are deep down that you don't know about, that are actually what's really motivating you. So we have slips of the tongue called Freudian slips, where you say the wrong word at the wrong time or call somebody by the wrong name. Your girlfriend by your ex-girlfriend's name. Eek. This is the psychodynamic theory that says that means something. The humanistic theory, number 20, that says that it didn't like the psychodynamic theory. The psychodynamic theory sounded kind of negative, sex, aggression, unconscious, blah. Once we get into it, you'll see a lot of people think it sounds very negative. So the humanistics came out and said, people are basically good. We do not have those sex and aggressive drives at our core. We're all trying to get along. Kumbaya, my Lord. We all love each other. We all have these great characteristics inside. We are all meant to be these wonderful roses, these wonderful people. As long as we get the right kind of environment throughout our life, we will bloom into this great person that has all these characteristics that we want in others. I believe people are basically good, and that's our natural tendency, is to get along. I think the toilet paper thing shows maybe something different, but anyway. Number 21, it says, y'all are crazy. You reading too much into this. The reason we're acting and feeling the way we are is pure biology. It's just anatomy and physiology. You have a brain injury, you take a substance, and it will alter your sense of humor, your interests, everything about you. So, nope, it's just biology. 22, sociocultural perspective says the reason you are the way you are is where you grow up and your position in that society.